Moving on to the largest companies in the world that are about to report. And, again, this is Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft tonight after the close, and then Apple and Amazon. Quick question. If you had to choose, and you could say none, which one do you think has the best chance of going up 10%, and which one has the best chance of going down and pushing lower on these earnings?
If I had to guess, I'd pick Amazon on the upside just because it's underperformed its peers. And then on the downside, I would assume Google just because we own that in CRA, and that would make me look bad.
Alphabet has had a really nice run.
Yeah, it is.
It is a really nice run, right?
Yeah.
Meta's kind of off its high, Microsoft off its highs. Alphabet has had a nice run since last quarter. People are expecting lots of things, and AI impacts them the most, right, in terms of search and stuff like that. And we're hearing people aren't buying as much traffic anymore and seeing those great results, which is Alphabet's, and Google's bread and butter. I agree with you. Amazon has underperformed. This is a big quarter for them. They have to show growth because Microsoft is showing growth across cloud, taking market share, and Amazon's still the leader in there, but they have to show growth. They have to show, if they can go into 20% growth and stuff like that, would be fantastic. I mean, they have the power to raise prices with everything else going on. AI, Anthropic, big investor in there. I'd be surprised if they come in. I think they just have to report something that's a little bit of a beat and a positive outlook, and that thing could really take off. We saw that with other stocks, especially Oracle, right? Holy cow. I mean, Oracle, AMD, these stocks go 10, 20% in a day, these massive stocks. I don't think we'll see that with any of these. And I'm expecting good things for Apple. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to break down, starting with Nvidia, which is not reporting, okay? But Nvidia, and you look at the companies reporting, they're throwing Nvidia in there because Nvidia is really driving the market higher. It's now closing in a $5 trillion valuation, right? This is the highest valuation in the world, biggest stock in the world. This after Jensen Huang spoke at the GPU Technology Conference in Washington. What were your thoughts on that? Because there was a lot that was said at that conference.
The cliff notes of that is they announced partnerships with, here you go, everybody, Frank. I mean, literally, you got Department of Justice stuff. You have, not penny stock, but Nokia, they invested there, Palantir, just everything. What I thought was pretty cool is, and this fits your Trump circle, Frank, so I got to give you a pat on the back here, not just because you're my boss. There is significance, and a lot of this is just to kind of, for lack of a better term, have fun here and give everybody something to yell about, kiss the ring. Frank, they held this conference in D.C., not California, not wherever else, D.C., and Trump couldn't be there. But that just shows you, to Frank's point, you got to be on the right side of politics, or you should be on the right side of politics. And we've seen it during both administrations, either right or left and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was pretty significant. I just think the takeaway here with the announcements and all this kind of stuff, I don't understand how Nvidia still, and I'm not a chip guru understanding that. Thank you to the network of people that send us in great information. Frank, what I took away from that is, how does Nvidia still not have a year or maybe even 2-year head start or lead against everybody else in the chip company? I mean, they are still number one and king, and I guess that solidified it to me, basically.
10 years ago, he decided to make a decision, partner with everyone. And a lot of technology companies, especially Apple, right? They just guarded. They're like, okay, it's us or nothing else. I mean, I'm pretty sure still that their biggest acquisition was just $3 billion of beats, for a company that has now pushing the $4 trillion mark Apple market cap. And creating these partnerships and then getting into software as well and creating this moat around your business. So once we start building the infrastructure, it's like you started building this beautiful house. And, it's going to be, I'd say a building, right? And it's going to be, 40 floors and the first 10 are built, right? So if you're going to use somebody else, you got to take a wrecking ball to it and then start from scratch when you already have that infrastructure in place. And now it's always improving and saying, hey, here's our next chip, here's our next chip, here's our next chip, plug it in, here you go. So, people who are starting from scratch could use other chips, AMD, Broadcom, you have Qualcomm up on news that they're getting into competing chips, but they're light years ahead of everyone, and even AMD. And even though AMD stock has been on fire, we've been all over that one, which is great. But, other things that he announced, and not just the partnerships with every industry leader across government, telecom, pharma, manufacturing, DOE announced contracts, U.S. government, Samsung, Hyundai, and also $500 billion in orders, Daniel. And this is $500 billion in orders. When we hear backlogs, usually backlogs are 5 years. Boeing's is freaking 7 to 10 years, right? If you order a plane from Boeing now, you're not going to get it for probably 7 years, right? So they have this massive backlog. We're not talking about 2030, 2035. We're talking about next year, $500 billion in orders, which is insane. So, and in the middle of this, what is he doing? He's part of Trump's circle. We keep pounding the table. I don't care if you hate Trump. It's about you. It's about your money. You want to go on vacations. You want to retire. Follow the companies that are following Trump. It's that easy. We keep seeing it over and over again. We saw it with a crappy company called Alcoa, which one of my friends said, friends, buy Alcoa. And we're up on Alcoa because Alcoa was in that circle in the Middle East. they're affected by tariffs, especially through Canada, and they're able to get deals with Australia and the U.S. government and rare earths and going through the plants that Alcoa has there and also in Japan. So being part of that circle is huge because he's flying to China with Trump to talk about selling black oil chips with President Xi. Right? This is off the table completely. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Probably not. That's pretty scary if it does, because China, without the Nvidia's help, is pretty close to us. And that's coming from the biggest names in our industry who would, neck deep in AI. They also invested $1 billion in Nokia. All right. So think about this. If you're a company, I want to put this in perspective. If you're a company and someone invested $1 billion, you could be greatest thing in the world. Greatest thing in the world. Okay. Enough to push that stock up 22%. And amounts to 0.02% of Nvidia's market cap.
Wow.
Like they wouldn't, it's a rounding error. They don't even know if it's missing. And look what something like that does to Nokia. That's how powerful Nvidia is, where they can invest in almost across all the AI companies across everywhere. And maybe that would take $500 billion in investments, and it's still just nothing compared to how big this company is. But if you look at major companies and say, who's industry Boeing and planes and Coke soft drinks and Ford, GM, cars, you have Lowe's, Home Depot, housing, retail. You know what NVIDIA is talking about right now? AI, quantum computing, robotics, 6G networking. I mean, this is the future of the world, right? That's what they're talking about, while everyone else is going to be using what they're building to help their companies within these individual industries, which makes their total addressable market every company in the world. And that's why you're seeing companies like that surge, where we also saw Palantir hit a new high. Should be a surprise. You guys should be in this really, or what do we recommend that? Or you actually put it on the books? We talked about it a lot.
This is your show, Frank.
It's hush. I did it. Wait, I won't lose this at Daniels.
Our cost basis is nice. It's 2408. We did sell half around 600%-ish, give or take, or somewhere. We sold half, took profits, but yeah, it's up over 7 now. It's 197. It's closing on 200.
Yeah, it's closing on 200. Which is
2408 is our cost basis.
But you're looking at Palantir, and just sat down with Alice Karp, and that's a great interview. If you guys could see, you can see it probably everywhere, YouTube, wherever, CNBC as well. But it says to build first of its kind integrated technology stack for operational AI, including, I'm quoting, analytics capabilities, reference workflows, automation features, and customizable specialized AI agents. Customizable and specialized AI agents. That's super AI agents. I'd basically accelerate, optimize complex enterprise and government systems. And you're hearing Joseph Wong say Palantir's light years ahead of everyone. And this is why we recommended it, because everyone was looking at price to sales. It's overvalued. You're crazy. Their total addressable market is massive, right? I talk about the mistake I made with Netflix such a long time ago. I didn't understand Netflix total addressable market was the whole entire cable industry. Okay, it wasn't getting a piece of it. It was a whole thing. And instead of using those comps against whoever, like other competitors, with Netflix, or cable companies, when you're looking at the total addressable market, every cable company was competing with Netflix. And now you're looking at a company that fits into its valuation. That's what you're seeing with a lot of these names. I think it's continue to go higher. It's amazing how many people still doubt this company. The more people that doubt it and it goes down, it's like Tesla. Whenever you hear everyone go on, just doubting, whatever, just buy it, okay? Because that's when you're hitting bottom, right? So when everyone's crapping on this company, which everyone was, say it's going to go lower and lower. Look, I'm not telling you fundamentals don't matter. I'm a fundamental analyst. I learned from my dad my whole entire life, right? Before he passed away. True fundamental analyst. It's not that I'm telling you not to look at the fundamentals, but the fundamentals are not driving the stock. So stop paying attention to what's not driving the stock. Look to what is driving the stock. What are the KPIs? And this is constantly signing new business with the biggest companies in the world and transforming them in terms of them coming on stage and saying, Palantir is the greatest company on earth, because these guys have the systems in place to immediately come into the company on day one and change the landscape of it, improve productivity. And there's not a lot of companies that could do that specifically other than Palantir. So, just a great interview if you get a chance to take a look at it. And again, another partnership. And just had amazing things to say about that company and Alice Karp.
Which is wild because, after the run, I think Karp, and I might get this confused, but Karp was talking about his own company and just said revenue and profits are soaring and saying that. One more thing, Frank, on your Trump circle and such. Did you see the headlines and news out of Japan on the investment deal? So Trump's signing one of his many deals. Japan's going to invest $550-ish billion. We're rounding here again. But I saw headlines today and just give you a Trump list of circle people on the pullbacks and such. And I get it. It's tough to buy at all-time highs. However, do not think of when or if, but when markets pull back for whatever reason. And I know that sounds silly and lackadaisical, but bear with me here. Frank, this $550 billion US, here's a shopping list for the next pullback. GE Vernova, we've talked about that several times. That should be on your list. I missed that to put it in CRA, but I know a lot of you guys own it because we pounded the table on that at different times. Frank, KMI, Kinder Morgan, natural gas transmission, pipelines, think that kind of stuff. And then Carrier. who do supply thermal cooling systems for all kinds of different things. So you have GEV, KMI, and CARR. That is going to get at least a portion of this $550 billion. Now, things can change. I get that. These are headlines. Take those with a grain of salt. However, you're talking about the Trump circle. You've nailed that. I think that's been great. You want to look at who's close to them. Here is a couple of stocks right there that are going to get a piece of this $550 billion investment from Japan. That's not going to stop. We're going to continue to see more of that. That will only expand. But there is some just easy, low-hanging fruit for the Trump circle stuff.
Apple, look at Apple. Apple's been on fire, right? I mean, if you look at this stock, let me bring up a chart really quick. I mean, if you look at the past few months, this stock could not get out of like the $200 range not long ago, right? I mean, it was like, is it going to break 200? Is it not? And we're talking about from April to August, such a nice period. And it's like, okay, the new iPhone is going to get launched into September. And usually in September, it usually, pulls back in September's because, there's just like, by the rumors, sell the news. And not that it's rumors, but, you see the iPhone come out. Now you're seeing just demand for the iPhone very strong through lots of channel checks. And there's a stock, again, that's 270 now. That was, I remember. It was a couple months ago. It was like, all right, are we going to break 200 here? And now, when you look at it, it's just on fire. 270.
Is that all-time high? It's got to be near it, right? It's got to be near an all-time high.
It is all-time high.
Okay.
Yeah, all-time high. And today, Bank of America just put a $320 target on it. That amounts, if it hits that, it would be a $4.7 trillion market cap. Crazy? I think it easily gets to those levels of 300, 320 by next year in the first 6 months of the year. I think this quarter is going to be amazing for them. They have incredible pricing power with their services division. They're selling the crap out of that phone, and it's a good phone. I own it, even though I did have problems. What a pain in the ass.
Yeah, way to take a victory lap. Wasn't it last week you said how much you loved it, and then boom.
Yeah, and so yesterday at 3 p.m., my phone died, and I didn't realize that I had to charge it, and it died. And it's the first time it actually fully died.
2 days ago.
It was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Fully died on me. So I'm using the cord to try to, charge it up, and it's not working. Like, damn, the cord's not working, right? Because I actually went to my car and tried here. I was like, why isn't it working? Went home, tried a different power cord, and it didn't work. It wouldn't turn back on. So I had to go to the Apple store with AT&T. They're like, we don't know anything. We just sell the shit out of this thing. And I go to Apple at 7 p.m. and they're like, well, we can't really do anything. It's 7:30, and then they just, they were closing, and I had to go in the next day. I go in the next day. Now I still don't have my phone, which I have a lot going on, man. I have 3 conferences coming up. We're doing everything for our conference, and millions of things are going on. So many details for our conference and rooms and people booking late, just all the stuff that you do with, we're a small company. It's our first conference, right? We're just learning, which is going to be in Fort Lauderdale. I'm excited from the 9th to 11th November. I got a lot of great speakers. It should be really cool. But the phone didn't turn on. So all of a sudden, I go to the store the next morning, 11 a.m., and I hand it to them, and the phone just turned on by itself. And they're like, there's nothing wrong with the phone. I'm like, are you kidding me? So it's a good phone. I couldn't believe that happened. I was really ticked off when it happened because, your life shuts off. And we got so much going on, but that was interesting. But they were great. The Apple stores are always freaking jam-packed. They always have classes there on how to use stuff for free, which is awesome. But Apple, if you look at Apple, Daniel, look at Nvidia, because there's a lot going around saying the breadth has never been this bad in the history of the market. What does that mean? It means that the breadth is the overall stocks across, the S&P 500, or even, you go even further over, whatever. It's 3,500 stocks, you're hitting new highs, and a lot of stocks are not participating in that, which they should be. Why? Because you have the biggest companies in the world like Apple, Nvidia, really taking off. AMD has made some nice moves. I mean, Oracle's pulled back off those highs, but you're seeing Apple, basically 2 of the biggest companies in the world, really driving the market higher right now. Now they're going into earnings with very high expectations. I mean, we're likely going to see strong beats across the board, and if there's anything like CapEx spending, see what Meta says about CapEx, that's going to be a very big deal. They might slow CapEx a little bit. I don't know, because they're spending a shitload of money, more than almost anyone else outside of Amazon. But those high expectations, guys, going in, I don't want to say this because I thought the same thing about Oracle. We had that in our portfolio. We're killing it. But sometimes you have those high expectations. You need to report blockbuster results in order to move that stock higher short term after earnings. They report amazing earnings, but a lot of times you see the stock fall 2-3%. It gives you a buying opportunity, right? So let's see how they report, because expectations have never been this high with every one of those names outside of Amazon really, close to their highs going into the quarters for today and tomorrow.